Okay, I'm calling the Ordinance Review Committee to order at 6:32. The participants in this meeting were gathered remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic as a result of an executive order by Governor Baker on March 12th, 2020, allowing us to do so. We don't have any minutes to approve. We're missing some from, not to gender profile, but from Tom, Sam, and Omar.
Right. I take the cake for the longest.
I just want you to realize, Sam, and you don't have to make them too detailed because there are videos. So it's basically just like, what we discussed and if there was any like major points or if we voted on anything. I wouldn't get too in the weeds because we do have the videos. Oh, my dog's barking. Okay. So we're going to just review chapter 9, which is short. Barb asked us not to move on to chapter 11 because she's on vacation and she has a lot to say about animal control. But before we go into chapter 9, I don't know if you got a chance yet to read the letter delivered to us by Commission Disability, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that was amazing.
It was amazing. And so I just want to share my screen so we can talk about it a little bit. And I thought, I think when we were thinking about it, we were thinking about more in terms of people having to shovel when maybe because of their age or their ability, it's a hardship. But we didn't even discuss so many of these points, which are so key, and which is why it's so important to have the input from different populations into this ordinance. But this was just so thorough.
Wow.
Did you have a chance to read it, Sam? Or no? We could just kind of go over it together because I thought they made some great points. So the first one was about the implicit bias on ableism, and this part talks a lot about when the limitations when people do not shovel their sidewalks, including the city and some of the city properties. That this creates, like how they talked about, if one part of the sidewalk is not shoveled in a network, this stops someone's path and this prevents somebody from traversing. And this affects people who are disabled, who are, using a wheelchair, who can't traverse snowbanks, can't traverse snowbanks in the street to complete the journey. So, the snow removal is not just like it'd be great if everyone shoveled, but it's necessary for people to travel equally. And it reminded me of an article I read. I can't remember what it was. It was it was a book, and it focused on different laws and how having certain demographics write all the laws. I think different perspectives aren't brought in like this one, and it spoke particularly about snow removal actually. And I think it was I can't remember all the details. I just remember it struck me because I think it was in a Scandinavian country the article was about. But basically, because of the people who decide what's most important, like this brings up, like we decide that the roads are the most important. That's the most important for a certain demographic. But what this chapter in this book I had read a while ago, now I didn't want to dig it up again, was basically like lots of people who like are pushing strollers. It was more of an urban environment, women and children, people who that's their only way to get places, not by the main arteries of the cars, were completely cut out of travel and not seen as important equally in the need for travel. So not by any probably male intent, by not having enough participation in creating ordinances and policies. So this reminded me of that. And I was so thankful that they provided it to us. They also talk a lot about how there's not as many sidewalks in more privileged and affluent communities in our cities. Therefore, any kind of punishment or fine or interaction with police that might be called because the walk isn't shoveled is going to disproportionately affect lower income communities versus affluent communities. So I thought that was really, and then also that people, so they rely on police complaints. So that was a summary of, I don't know, I thought it was awesome and so well written, and I can't wait I think this would be good to go to public safety actually. But did anyone else any comments or takeaways from this?
Yeah, I was so impressed in reading that and how thorough it was and how it really dug into it and how absolutely accurate it was. And you know, not to draw necessarily like off the beaten path, so to speak, no pun intended, parallels, but you know, I mean, we were thinking in terms of people who were unable to clear the sidewalks and like unable to abide by the ordinance. And this is thinking a lot about the pandemic has shown us that not everybody prioritizes the safety and well-being of the entire community. I'm not saying this just in Easthampton. I'm talking about like the
Yeah.
US, the world as a whole. I mean, there's riots all over the place about masking. Which is just basic decency and thoughtfulness to your fellow humans, as well as just wanting to protect yourself from a deadly virus. You know, and I think that there's a real opportunity to kind of dig into this and dig into the classism that they're talking about in that too, because this is something that I have heard from people in the community. Like, I want to be able to participate in activities and stuff in the city, and I can't get there. And what people have said too, like older people in my neighborhood have talked about the fact, like how grateful they are when the bike path gets cleaned off because they have the ability to go places and go, you know, go to the store and or like pick something up. And even in my neighborhood, like not which is off of Main and South, like not all of the roads have sidewalks. Like South Street doesn't have sidewalks down the entirety of it, like all the way down. And there's like a little local restaurant down there, and if somebody wanted to go, like getting there with there's like no sidewalk to get. The sidewalk stops at a point at South Street. You know, and I know most of that because of dog walking in the winter. You know, and not because it's something that I have like a necessity for to get someplace. So I think that there's huge opportunities here, and I think, yeah, public safety should do it. And obviously, I think people will, you know, we always hear improvements and stuff talking about like what is the cost of making sure that things are done, but especially with the not that River Valley Market is necessarily going to be like financially accessible to everybody, but it is in a place where there isn't really easy access to, you know, to a grocery store for other parts of the city. I mean, we have Biggies in the center, but you know, people that live in communities out in the other direction, it might be harder for them to get there. So is it, you know, important that we have nice clear sidewalks so community members that want to access that resource can access that resource all winter? You know, and we have situations too where like businesses are closed or properties are vacant. You know, who is the city? I know we talked a little bit about it last time, but is the city in charge of making sure that all of the continuous sidewalks are clear past those properties too? Because there's not a ton of public transportation in Easthampton. There's just not a ton of it. So
yeah, and the bike path kind of not, it's almost like I feel like we view as a city like the bike path being cleared as like, oh, it would be nice if people could ride it, but that's some people's main kind of artery to get places. And so I mean, I think our city should take a higher priority about like making sure it's cleared, just like we would a main road. I think we rely on like Williston donates some clearing, and you know, but it's not like an understood thing. Like the bike path will definitely be cleared. Really good. And also, I guess too, as we examine laws, I guess we've been examining them more, like you were saying, Kay, about like how it affects the people who are like following the law or not following the law. But in terms of how people are being affected by people not following the law, that's like a whole other kind of layer. And does it disproportionately affect a certain group of people if the law is not followed? Like that's one. So interesting. I thought it was. Hey, I think I'm going to attend their meeting just to say thank you in person.
that'd be great. And you know what, as a recommendation, I think sending this to public safety for review would be great.
Yeah. All right, any other comments on this? I think we can just attach it to our overall kind of, I mean, they wrote it so well, there's nothing, nothing for us to add to it. Okay. All righty. I will stop the share of that and I will share chapter 9. Hold on. Where did I put it? I have like 20, I have a problem with too many tabs open at all times.
It's so funny that we don't have our officer liaison in the meeting today, and I really did have questions for that about that too,
Yeah.
about this whole ordinance.
Do we know who's
Whole
taking
ordinance.
minutes today, actually?
Oh, sorry.
We
Oh my
didn't do
gosh,
that.
Helen, thank you.
Yeah, I can offer to do it since I brought it up, but I'm just realizing that,
I'm expecting everyone to go like this.
right?
Got it.
I know.
It's probably, I
Me-
think, back around to probably K by K. I'm just going back in the original order, but I think it went through everybody. But no, it went through, yeah, Tom was the first and then, but either one of you, it doesn't matter which order. Helen, you want to do it?
Sure, yeah, I can do it.
Hi. Good.
Thank you,
Child.
Helen. I do appreciate it. I really
No
appreciate
problem.
it.
I just, in terms of like not spending too much time trying to figure out who's going to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, great, thank you. So you could
I'll
just for
sign
the
up.
bullet point for next time. For the bullet point 1, we, brought the Commission on Disabilities evaluation to the record. Okay.
I don't know if I was on mute when I said this, but I'll take next time.
Okay. It should be hanging on something somewhere. Oh. Hold on, I have to, this is a, 1 second, I'm on AirPods, so you guys can keep track of that. Here it is. Okay. I've got grandma here, another room, my mom, trying to entertain my child. Okay. Let me see, chapter 9. Doo-doo-doo. Oops. Omar's here. Hello? Okay. You can hear me, right?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. So here we are. Let the fun begin. Taxi cabs.
My main question with this is, well, I only have 2 questions about this, I think, at the moment, is like, how does Uber and Lyft factor into all of this?
That was my question too.
This is the main question.
I'm glad that you said that too, because I think they're independent contracts, right?
Right.
So it technically doesn't apply, but I was wondering if those rules could apply
Or
to
should
them.
those,
'Cause I mean, I don't know
like,
how
should
that
be-
works.
yeah. Here was my other question, which is sort of related, is so like I've been on the council now since 2018, and I have never issued a taxi permit. And
That
maybe
was my other question. Yeah.
because that industry's kind of done, or like, is this still something like, do we still do this? Like, I know that there are taxi companies. Have they just all been licensed, so there's no need for it to come before the council? It's weird because like licensing stuff rarely actually comes before the council, but that's what this ordinance sort of instructs us to do. So I'd be kind of interested to see, I mean, all these licenses must be on record, and I'd just be kind of interested in seeing how that actually plays out.
Mhm.
Do they need to register with every city they like transport people from, or you
I
just
wouldn't
choose
think
a
so.
city, right? So I imagine that most of them would register in Northampton and then cruise around, for
Mhm.
and like, for advertising, basically. I mean, you see it on the sides of some vehicles, and then, I'm sure if you Google taxi, they come up, but doesn't matter where they're based out of.
I think we only have one based out of Easthampton, Aaron's.
Yeah.
And they've been around for God knows how long.
What are their names? What's their name?
Aaron's, isn't it?
Harris?
Does
But
that
it,
sound
it
right?
says any person to operate such a business within the city of Easthampton. So aren't you operating if you come and pick up people here or no?
That's an
We don't
excellent
know.
question. Right, and I think like it's cool to say like taxis are primarily obsolete because we all, you know, so many of us have smartphones and we have the Uber and Lyft app on our smartphone, but there's older people or people that don't have access to cell phones or computers, you know, that don't necessarily have the capacity to have an app that's like hooked up to their credit card, you know? So I think it might be
Yeah.
cool to call the taxi service and see like what they're doing in Easthampton. But I think
Well,
like
actually, my neighbors across the street regularly use taxis. They also use Uber, but they have disabilities and can't drive, and they often need to take taxis because an Uber is not guaranteed to be available when you need it. So they'll go into their phone and there's no Uber available, or for like scheduling in advance for like going to the airport, you can schedule an Uber in advance, things like that. So they actually, I see cab, it's like the Green Cab Company or something, it's in Northampton. So I see them actually regularly on my former block. I would see them. So I think they are used a lot by people who, you know, need transport on a regular basis. But I don't know anything about.
and I think there's some social services too that give you because my elderly aunt in Worcester does it through like the senior services where they give you like a voucher for cab fare for a doctor's appointment or something like that. So so I'd be interested to know like from the senior center perspective. But that is to say, like, I don't know about the licensing part of it, but I think the existence of actual taxis is still relevant.
Yeah.
I was also curious about and I'm sorry, I didn't write down which section it was, but there was one about like not transporting alcohol in the taxi. And I'm like, well, if you're somebody who is, you know, elderly and you want, and in my aunt's case, your 6-pack of Busch Light, you know, and you need a ride to the store and back because you don't have a car, you're unable to drive because you have visual impairment, which is her situation.
I was under the impression it was like an open.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
I don't know. It
Not
literally
you
says
can't
not
have it.
transport.
No, so we go.
It's further down.
The city council shall issue to the applicant a permit.
Yeah, that's what
Have
I'm
you ever
saying.
issued? Omar, Tom, Omar, Tom? Yeah, Tom said he's never issued it.
It's
No,
never come before
Yeah,
us in our,
no, that I remember.
we both got to say at the same time though. So maybe it happened like 10 years
Right
ago.
before you.
Probably, yeah.
But then it said something like about the first in May 1st, you had to, to drink any intoxicating beverage. You can't be impolite. Try legislating that. Politeness.
I like too that like of all the laws they choose to be voluntary, it says the city strongly encourages the use of child safety seats.
Yeah, you must be polite, but
But like the child safety seat's optional.
isn't that a state law that you have to
Yeah.
have child safety? I don't know though, in New York City, you can go in taxis without child safety seats. All right, well, I guess like asking, like I wanted the police officer, I wanted Officer Sichi here too, because I was curious, and look at these rates. These are maximum rates and they were set in 2008. So I don't know if those are like.
If you scroll back up for a second to 9-3, it's like the 5th paragraph from the bottom, which is paragraph E. Hold on one second. Paragraph. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry.
E?
Where the hell did it go now? Bear with me 1 second. Oh yeah. So H. I apologize. So paragraph H. So is the copy that I'm looking at different? Can you scroll?
What page?
9-3.
Oh, 9-3. The 9-3, I don't, oh, the page 9-3. I was looking at the 9-3.
Yes, page 9-3. I'm so sorry.
It's very confusing. 9-6 section. Okay.
Yes, sorry. So H, it says no taxi cab shall be used for the transportation for hire of any alcoholic beverages or alcohol without a common carrier's license issued, which is just odd. Like, do you read that as like you can't take somebody grocery shopping if they pick up a bottle of wine at Biggie's? Like,
Well, it
what?
says without a common carrier's license issued by the public, now the public utility. Oh, wait, oh, yeah. That does seem like that.
That sounds like the situation where they're transporting kind of a,
Alcohol
Like for
without
delivery?
people.
kind of a quantity, you know. I think if someone had alcohol just kind of you know,
Shopping bag.
the primary purpose is to transport the person and they happen to have alcohol. You know, I don't know that that's what's being talked about here. Because common carriers are like folks that are, you know, they're transporting quantities of things.
I would say either way, we should definitely at least look at some rewording of it so there's some clarity for everybody.
Yeah, my first thought is I'd really like to chat with the police and maybe whoever's actually, I mean, I don't know who else you'd want to talk to, this maybe city clerk, about like, how does the language here actually line up with current practice? I-
Yeah.
Weird feeling that none of this is being enforced in a meaningful way. And
Yeah.
so then maybe that calls for,
Right, like when's the last time somebody has solicited passengers for a taxi, like by yelling on the street in a public way? like,
That would be so cool. Like, I feel like I'm in New York. So, I mean, this is one we should maybe just email to Barb and Officer Sichi.
Yep.
And say, tell us about this. This is relevant. More. And next week when we discuss animal control, or in 2 weeks, and Barb will be here. She's told me, please don't go to chapter 11 until I'm back from vacation. See what else? How many chapters do we have left in this? Chapter 9, we're almost done, I think. Yeah, there's only 13 chapters. All right, well, is there, as we're entering the end of these, is there, is there anyone you want me to invite to another meeting? I know maybe, even if it's not about chapter 12, like, do we have unresolved feelings about any of these chapters or do you feel like, I feel like animal control shouldn't be the same week as environmental ordinances, because we might want to invite someone to the environmental ordinances. Or not, I don't know, stormwater management.
I think animal control is going to be a meeting. Just I read, and it's there's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of
okay.
So,
and environmental is such a different topic, and we could invite some people from the Department of Public Works who are working on stormwater type topics. So yeah, I think those should be separated.
Are we still awaiting some information from the police regarding when they use civil penalties and criminal penalties for where they have discretion? Did we ask them to do that, or am I just making that up?
we had at the time the report, there was the mayor's pledge report coming out.
Right.
I think
Oh,
the
right.
hope was that was going to be in there, and there is some interesting data in there about practices, but the specific question we were asking is just not a cross tabulation.
Right.
That report. I did speak with the consultant that we brought on to do that report, to just sort of ask some questions that I had about the data. It sounds like the system that they store all their data in is very old and difficult to do sort of data analysis as it's understood in like a modern perspective for, which is something that I think there is interest in the city and in the police department in overhauling. But you know, I think it's totally fair to ask, but from what I heard from her, they had some real challenges getting like tables and statistics out of the current system, which is more used to like report incidents to like the state and federal than like generate these sorts of things, which is like, I think everyone knows is a problem. So it's just about kind of figuring out what we can do right now and what has to change. And I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I think we should make the request. And I also would not be incredibly surprised if that was the sort of thing that was difficult for them to like quickly respond to.
Mhm. And then I also wondered, do we have a noise ordinance?
Noise ordinance?
Yeah.
We don't. We don't formally have one. If you're being, this is my understanding from having conversations about this with the chief, is if you're being really, really, really egregious, they can call it disturbing the peace or whatever, but we don't actually have a noise ordinance in Easthampton of any sort, like formally.
Because that seems like I mean, I don't know what how many people call in for noise complaints, but you know, we're kind of identifying areas where, and maybe this is creating a problem where there isn't one, but you know, deciding that someone is loud and other people's aren't on a basis that isn't objective could be a point of, you know, could be a problem. I know some places have it, you know, based on decibels and things like that. So it's not like they're picking people out to, you know.
Right, but in a town that's majority white, right? Like I can see opportunity for bias in a noise ordinance, you know.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying that if there was one that keyed into like a specific noise level, that, you know, that might be.
Yeah, I mean, just empirically, like I remember when I was in college, I did live in an apartment in Easthampton, and I do remember having a party at my house, and somebody said we were being noisy, but again, there was no ordinance. So I think like a police officer just knocked on the door and was like, "Hey, somebody said you're like that. It was really annoying and noisy. Could you guys quiet down?"
Right.
But there wasn't like, there was no fine, there was no citation. They were just like, someone complained, so we're here. Can you quiet down? And that was the extent of it, which
Like,
frankly I think is
Yeah.
fine, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily something that I mean, it's something, it's come up a lot. But like every few years someone says, should we have a noise ordinance? And for one reason or another, it's never actually gained any traction in the council as something that we've seriously considered in my time here anyway.
I went on a ride along, and one of the calls we went on was a noise call. It was like a neighbor calling. It was a split family up and down, and Sergeant Greavy was saying to me that like that's often, it's just so much of those kind of calls are like adults who can't talk to each other. Like, even though they live in the same house, they can't just like ask the people downstairs to be quiet. So it's like, he just showed up and was like, can you be quiet?
Right.
And he was like, I wasn't making any noise. It was like, okay, well, continue to not make any noise. He did come to the door in his underwear as well. But anyway, that's just a side note. But it's interesting thinking of that as like you were saying, like adults who can't talk to each other, just ask someone to be quiet. But we don't have one. And I'm kind of glad we don't have one, I think.
As a musician, I don't mind not having.
Yeah. Unless you live out near Fort Hill, I think it's probably okay.
So I think we can have a short meeting tonight. The Commission Disability rocked it and gave us a great letter. And so the taxis, they'll send to the city clerk and the police, just say like, is this still practice? And I noticed that I didn't do my thing from last week, which is I did get the Commission on Disabilities, but the Board of Public Works, we were going to ask about the signs. So I'll do that actually right now before I leave my computer. Let's set another meeting if we don't have anything else.
Are we globally just making sure that any fees or anything are going to be reviewed due to inflation? Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's a global one. Let's see. So 2 weeks would be May 17th. I think taxes are due that day this year.
May 17, we have finance, and we're gonna get the budget. So
Oh, so that will not be. So we went to that. What are the budget meetings? Are there a lot that week?
12, 13, 17, 24, and 26.
Good 24.
Thanks so, Omar.
Oh, I have the 12th and 13th in there. So also what did you say, the 17th?
17, the 24, 26,
How about the 18th?
18. Tuesday.
Or we don't have to, we could put it off another week, or the 24th, there's also a thing. So
The 18 worked for me.
the 18th, okay. 6:30 on the 18th.
Anyone else?
Um,
It worked for me.
that should be
Natalie?
fine for me.
It should be fine for me. I might be a little late just because of soccer stuff.
Mhm.
Natalie, Tuesday the 18th at 6:30. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. All right.
And are we
Cool.
gonna be? Is Barbara gonna be back? Is that when we're gonna start?
Yeah,
delving
she'll be
into
back on
the-
vacation. She'll be back by then.
Okay.
So
Cool.
we'll just do chapter 10 that day. An exciting animal control. Bring a stuffy.
Or my actual dogging.
For your
Oh,
animals.
my actual dog, yeah. Mine would. All right. Take a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Third.
Okay, so I'll say that was made by Sam because he nodded when I said take a motion, and seconded by someone else. Okay. And okay, Helen, Natalie, just yes from the journey. Okay, yes. Omar, Sam, Tom.
Aye.
Okay. So moved. We're adjourning. See you guys in the 18th. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Stop